Let's talk about the three components that we need to make up homeostasis. The first thing is that we need a sensory receptor or input organ. Sensory receptors are going to pick up information. They're what's going to tell the control center, our next piece, that there's something that needs to be changed or something that needs to be done. So there's going to be a sensory receptor. The next thing is the control. Now, often this is our brain picking up information, deciding what to do with it, and sending it out. The third part is the effector. The effector organ or the effector or target space is going to be what actually gets a response, right? This is where we are changing something and getting a response in that effector. So a sensory center, a control center, an effector center are the three components that we need for us to go through the process of homeostasis. Now let's talk about the two different types of homeostasis. There's going to be positive and negative feedback. Positive feedback are going to give us the same response. So the stimulus and the response are going to be the same. Negative feedback are going to be opposites. The stimulus and the response are going to be opposite. Let's give some examples. So for positive feedback, one of the examples, let's talk about a stampede. So if we have a stampede of cows, and one cow starts the stampede, more cows are going to join in and start running. So the stimulus is the one cow running, the response are more cows running. In our body, though we don't have a lot of positive feedback responses, a good example of this would be clotting factors. So in our blood, when we have an injury inside of our body, let's say we have a cut and we start sending clotting factors there with inside of our blood to help clot the blood to stop the response of the bleeding. What's going to happen, that one clotting factor is going to stimulate more clotting factors. Another example that we have inside of our body is going to be oxytocin. Oxytocin is going to be a hormone that is released, and when it is released, we cause labor contractions. Labor contractions then stimulates more oxytocin to be released. So that's a positive feedback. Now, negative feedback we find more often inside of our body. Our body maintains homeostasis the majority of the time by negative feedback. Some examples of negative feedback. Let's talk about the thermostat inside of your home. So the thermostat inside of your home, you set it, let's say it is hot out, it is the summer, and you set it to 70 degrees. What's going to happen is that when the temperature rises above 70 degrees, the thermostat is going to kick on, right? So the thermostat is on, it's going. When it reaches 70 degrees, the thermostat is going to kick off, right? So it turns off, it gives a negative feedback, and the system is off now. Our body maintains temperature the same way in a negative feedback mechanism, in that when we are shivering or cold, we will send a message to our brain to turn on the response of shivering, right? Or we may vasodilate and rush blood to keep us warm in areas that we're cold, so our hands, our face. So that's a negative feedback mechanism. Another good example of negative feedback inside of our body is going to be blood glucose. So when blood glucose levels rise up, we are going to release insulin to help lower those blood glucose levels. So a negative feedback mechanism. Let's go ahead and look at a diagram to walk ourselves through this. So let's look at this balance. This is our body maintaining homeostasis, and we become imbalanced when the scales tip one way or the other. Let's look at the stimulus of heat. So if we look at the stimulus of heat on the left-hand side here, this is where the body temperature is rising. So picture yourself working out or going outside even, and our body temperature rises. We have receptors inside of the cells of our skin and in our brain that are picking up temperature. That receptor is sending a message to the control center here. The brain is our control center, and it does this by an afferent pathway, so A for afferent. The control center decides what to do, and with that, the thermoregulatory center in the brain is going to say, hey, we need to lower the body temperature, and it sends a message through the efferent pathway through to the effector organ or the target organ, and in this case is the sweat glands. Sweat glands are activated and are going to evaporate or start the evaporation of sweat, which then in turn has the body temperature fall and the stimulus ends, and so a negative feedback. We can also do this with cold. So the stimulus being cold, the body temperature falls, The receptors, which would be the tissues inside of our skin and in our brain, pick up that we are getting cold, sends a message to the thermoregulatory center in the brain via an afferent pathway. This is through the nervous system. That control center decides what to do, and it sends that message through the efferent pathway to the effector or target organ, in this case, the skeletal muscles, which are then going to shiver and move. And this is going to raise body temperature, bringing us back to homeostasis. I hope that that video helped you understand homeostasis. Remember, it's all about our body systems maintaining its balance. Happy studying.